Brothers and sisters, yesterday we were talking about baptism and the importance and the great impact that it makes. I need to tie up with a few considerations that you can't just fit in one video, but that we need to just speak a little bit about. So here are the truths that the church proclaims: that baptism is necessary for salvation. It's something really critical in our journey towards heaven. The church also teaches that, can the Lord save souls that have not been baptized? Can the Lord save souls outside the visible boundary of the church? In other words, people who don't identify as Christian, etc. Can the Lord save these souls? Didn't the Lord die for all of humankind? And doesn't the Lord love everyone? Yes, of course. First of all, God as creator loves everything that he creates. He holds everything in being. He loves all souls that exists and in being. He loves. In that sense, in the broad sense, we are all children of God. You know, even the sun and the moon, you could say, are children of God. In a sense, they're offspring of his creation in some way. And St. Francis, in the great mystic that he is, you know, he says, because, you know, brother sun and sister moon, and you know, and he speaks like he has this fundamental connectivity with the rest of creation, and sees in this radical freshness with his eyes that, you know, we all have come from God and this kind of creation. But of course, the way that God loves the sun and the moon is different to the way that he loves us, because the way that God loves sun and moon is precisely as these creatures that are there, part of the creation. But he loves human beings in a very special way, because he's given them and endowed them with gifts most similar to himself, you know, that we'll be able to think, that we are able to love just like God, and therefore we're made in his image. And that image remained even after sin. The image remains in all human beings, that we're able to know and love and have this ability to govern with him, etc., exercising these faculties of intellect and will. But the likeness to God is what was muddied and tarnished by sin, and that's what we're rediscovering, and that's what we are growing back into. And that's where the sacrament of baptism not only helps fortify us as in the image of God, strengthen our mind to know the truth more deeply by knowing God himself as revealed in Jesus Christ, and also strengthening our will to love the gospel and to love the things God has asked us to do. It is also restoring us into likeness with the Lord, and this is precisely done through grace. You know, grace is what transforms us more and more deep at a level that we cannot see, in our deepest essence of our soul. It's transforming us and bringing us to partake in the life of God in an incredible way. So come back to some of these questions in this beginning. We have to say that there is a difference between the unbaptized and the baptized, in the extent that, well, every human being is a child of God, yes, but those who are baptized formally and are called into the intimate life of God share in Jesus as Son in the most intimate of ways. And so they are children of God in a different sense, in a more intimate sense, in a more real sense, you could say, in a more fulfilled sense. So yes, we're all children of God, and God loves. God, as I said yesterday, God loves intensely and in one way. However, the way that we're filled with that love, it differs from each person. And this is why in heaven there'll be different degrees of saints, you know. We'll all be happy because, as St. Therese said, there'll be different glasses, different sizes. It will just be full to capacity, according to who you are. But the point is that there are differences, and these differences just go to make up the beautiful tapestry of God's plan and creation. If there was no difference in the shades of color, you would just have a blank painting rather than have a beautiful painting, right? So it's just part of God's mystery of manifesting his diversity and his creativity and in his goodness. We have all the different personalities. All this stuff reflect God's infinite creativity. So come back to the question about okay, so yes, people who are baptized, they have a claim on God's heart. And Jesus died for everyone, and this is why baptism is for everyone. And it's not, that's why we want to bring people into this most intimate life with God in this most sure way. So the church does teach that God does work outside the sacraments, But we know for a fact that the sacraments do what they say they do. So we have a surety and a certitude. So this is the thing. Is God at work in other people's lives outside the church, Muslims and Hindus? Absolutely. Does he love them? Absolutely. Could you get a Hindu that might be in a better stance before God than a Catholic who is in mortal sin? Absolutely. But the gospel does propel us out to bring them into the sacraments, because the sacraments have, as I said in the last video, give us life-giving grace, and it's more certain for salvation. And so for those outside the church, they can be saved by Christ. So for example, in purgatory and heaven, you will meet Hindus and Muslims and other people of other faiths, but at death they would have had the revelation of Christ, and they would have come to know Christ, and they would have accepted him by a special light and a grace. And so in that sense, yes, God works outside of the church to save souls as well.